Good day, my dears. Come in and take your seats. Do I have a doozy of a tutorial for you today? I just love knowing that you're here to learn all these facts, and this education is called Your Menopause Your Way. We are embarking on a great big unit on breast cancer, and I have already given you individual units on cancer in general, endometrial uterine cancer, and cervical cancer. Those units taught you much of what you'll need to make use of the information I deliver today. And the information I deliver today is absolutely vital. It will probably knock your socks off. That is, if you even wear socks. But regardless of whether or not you wear socks, it will definitely make your head spin. And I know you have a head. And here at Menopause University, you fill it with all sorts of information that sets you on the path to success with your menopause management. So far in this breast cancer unit, video number 356 was on basic anatomy of your breasts. Video 357 was on the anatomical evolution of your breasts as you age. Video number 358 was on the 4 breast hormones. Video 359 was on dense and fibrocystic breasts. And video 360 was on benign breast diseases. And finally, video 361 was on terms for not yet cancer entities. The last term of the not yet cancer entities that I presented last week was the in situ diseases, and that's where we'll pick up today. We'll dwell on the in situ breast diseases. This topic of in situ breast diseases is full of inconsistencies. By using the term inconsistencies, I mean that there are all sorts of things that are inconsistent with other cancers, and there are all sorts of things that are inconsistent with in situ breast diseases themselves. Notice that I use the term diseases instead of the term cancers, and this video will explain why. But the most obvious reason is that these in situ diseases are not cancers. They are benign breast diseases, as I indicated in video number 360. So let's start there with benign breast diseases for our first inconsistency of the in situ breast diseases. You see, there are a lot of cancers that have a precursor to the actual cancer, and they are called pre-cancers. You've heard me use the term pre-cancers to describe both atypical hyperplasia and dysplasia. These are entities that entail disorganized growth of cells, but mostly on a microscopic level with none of the behaviors of actual cancer on a macroscopic level. Precancers can stay as they are and never become actual cancer, or they can progress in terms of their pathology and start behaving like cancer. By definition, true cancers invade surrounding anatomy. So until there is invasion, there is no cancer. No invasion equals no cancer. But there's no way to know if a pre-cancer will stay put or become a cancer. In any case, for all other cancers, pre-cancer is called pre-cancer. There is no confusion about the fact that it's not yet a cancer. But such is not the case with pre-cancers of the breast. Instead of just calling them pre-cancers, there's a different term to label pre-cancers of the breast. Instead of being called pre-cancers, breast precancers are called Carcinoma In Situ. And that brings us to the second inconsistency. The second inconsistency is that even though carcinoma in situ is pre-cancer, it is labeled with a name that makes just about everybody misinterpret it and therefore treat it as if it is actual cancer. I just hate it when labels are inaccurate or misleading. And these labels for breast precancer are everything but accurate. You probably know the acronym CIS. That's the acronym for carcinoma in situ. There's lobular carcinoma in situ, which goes by the acronym LCIS. And there's ductal carcinoma in situ, which goes by the acronym DCIS. So let's dive into these labels and determine what these entities actually entail. I'm going to dissect the label carcinoma in situ backwards. First, I'll explain the meaning of the term in situ. And after that, I'll explain the meaning of the word carcinoma. In situ is the Latin word for on site. So it means local or in its original location. So anytime the words in situ are part of the name that describes abnormal cells, it means that the abnormal cells are still in their original location. On the other hand, the word carcinoma means cancer. But for a disease to be a cancer, the cells have to grow uncontrollably, spread, and invade other anatomical tissues nearby or distant. Carcinoma is not in its original location. So the label carcinoma in situ is an oxymoron. It contradicts itself. It can't be both a cancer and a non-cancer. You can't have it both ways. It can't be both local and distant. It can't be both in its original location and also not in its original location. It can't be both in situ and invasive. It's either one or the other. If you translate carcinoma in situ literally, it means cancer cells that grow uncontrollably, spread, and invade other anatomical tissues nearby or distant, but also stay in their original location and do not grow uncontrollably, spread, and invade other anatomical tissues nearby or distant. See what I mean? Which is it? Is it localized, or does it spread and invade other tissues? It can't be both. It is shocking how often people take things that can only be one way and try to have them both ways. This is most common in situations where the facts do not match the fear. So instead of just admitting that the fear is misplaced, people twist things into illogical practices that seek the middle ground. A good example of this is the goofy mantra, take the lowest dosage of HRT for the shortest period of time. Every other hormone deficiency on planet Earth is treated by taking the appropriate dosage of hormone replacement for the rest of your lifetime. Everyone knows that hormone replacement for a hormone deficiency is not only safe, but life-saving. But with HRT for menopause, the only hormone replacement fueled by fear, there's an effort to acknowledge the fact that it's completely safe and also acknowledge the fear that it is potentially dangerous. If it's safe, you should take an appropriate dosage for the rest of your life in the same way you take all other hormone replacements. And if it's unsafe, you shouldn't take it at all. You can't have it both ways. So which is it? Telling women to take the lowest dosage of HRT for the shortest period of time is like telling a smoker that it's safe to smoke just one pack of cigarettes a day for 10 years but no more. Now, obviously, HRT and cigarettes are opposites in terms of safety, but the mentality of wanting it both ways is the same. Well, the fact that carcinoma in situ of the breast is such an oxymoron has resulted in this litany of inconsistencies with regard to just about everything that I'm pointing out to you in this video. The third inconsistency has to do with staging. As I've taught you in all the previous cancer units, cancers are staged based on how far they have spread. Of course, with all other cancers, they meet the definition of cancer because they have spread. They may be stage 1, confined to the organ of origin, but even then, they have spread within that organ of origin. They have not stayed microscopically localized to their spot of origin. Generally speaking, cancer staging systems go like this. Stage 1 is confined to the organ of origin. Stage 2 is spread to only the most nearby organ. Stage 3 is spread to a slightly more distant organ. And stage 4 is spread via lymph or blood to very distant organs. And notice that there is no stage 0. But alas, carcinoma in situ of the breast is stage 0. I know of no other cancer that has a stage 0. Because this is an example of an entity that isn't really a cancer, the label becomes a made-up, non-existent one that is made to fit into the cancer staging system when the disease isn't even a cancer. That's inconsistent with cancer staging systems in general. For the fourth inconsistency, if you look up the definition of carcinoma in situ, it is defined as a group of abnormal cells that are localized to their place of origin without uncontrolled growth, spread, or invasion of nearby structures. But if you look up the word carcinoma, it is defined as a group of abnormal cells that are not localized to their place of origin, but do grow uncontrollably and invade nearby structures. So carcinoma in situ, by definition, is non-invasive. But cancer, or carcinoma, by definition, is invasive. So the term carcinoma in situ is inconsistent with the definition of cancer and cancer behavior. It breaches the basic requirement of invasion in order for a disease to be a cancer. The fifth inconsistency comes from comparing carcinoma in situ of the breast with carcinoma in situ in other organs. In the unit on cervical cancer, video number 347 was on screening with pap smears versus screening with HPV tests. In that video, I showed you the terms used to label different levels of dysplasia on a pap smear. You might recall this chart. If you focus on the pink row, you see that mild, moderate, and severe cervical dysplasia, all of which are precancers, are designated by the acronym CIN. CIN is the acronym for cervical intraepithelial neoplasia. In video number 311, in the unit on cancer in general, you learned that the word neoplasia means a collection of cells that exhibit both hyperplasia and dysplasia. In other words, there are too many cells and they are disorganized. And the individual cells have some characteristics of cancer cells. And because of this, they have the potential to behave like cancers and spread. But if they have not spread, they are no more harmful than a collection of normal cells. Cervical intraepithelial neoplasia of the cervix means that the abnormal cells are localized to their place of origin without spread or invasion to nearby structures. Oh my! That's exactly the same as carcinoma in situ of the breast. Yet, there is no cancer staging system for cervical cancer that includes CIN as stage 0. And there is no rampant fear of cervical cancer, even though it's a much worse disease than breast cancer. So what it comes down to is this. CIS of the breast is essentially the same thing as CIN of the cervix. CIS equals CIN. But wait until you see how differently they are managed, which is the next inconsistency. The sixth inconsistency is the management of carcinoma in situ of the breast compared to other precancerous entities that represent the same thing or similar things in other organs. Going back to our comparison with cervical cancer, video 350 was on treatment of cervical cancer and precancer. There, you learned that CIN of the cervix is treated very simply by destroying or removing the tiny area of abnormal cells. And that's it. Here's the chart of treatment for cervical cancer and precancer that we created in that video. Look at the green section. That's the pre-cancer section. If you focus on the last column, you see that the treatments for all the various degrees of cervical precancer are the same. They are all treated with either cryotherapy or laser to destroy the abnormal cells, or they are treated with excision via cervical conization or LEEP to remove the abnormal cells. All these procedures are swift, simple, and sufficient. They constitute one and done. There's no need for any additional therapy or worry. And that's precisely because they're localized. Now, let's see how this plays out for lobular and ductal carcinomas in situ of the breast. Both involve abnormal cells confined to just the lobule or the duct inside a tiny structure and nowhere else. So, lobular carcinoma in situ, or LCIS, is a tiny area of abnormal cells here. And ductal carcinoma in situ, or DCIS, is a tiny area of abnormal cells down here in the stalk. But in neither case had the cells broken through the wall of the lobule or duct. This model is a good depiction of LCIS and DCIS, even though it's really just a toilet paper roll. The key is to understand that all of the abnormal cells are self-contained and still confined to their location of origin and causing no harm to any nearby structures. If I open up the toilet paper roll, they look like this, inside only, nothing on the outside. But management of CIS of the breast is a whole different ballgame. Here I have a chart of treatment for breast conditions. We won't get into any of these things on this chart for a long while to come, so please don't try to understand it now. When we get to it, I will explain it in very great detail. For now, just focus on the green section. You can see that the treatment for this carcinoma in situ stage 0 pre-breast cancer is the very same for all the stages of breast cancer up to stage 4. That's just complete overkill. And it's all driven by fear, not logic. Even though CIS is localized to a tiny lobule or duct in your breast, even though it has not invaded outside that tiny lobule or duct, and even though it may have never progressed, the treatments for CIS of the breast entail all of the following. The least expensive treatment option is lumpectomy, but that is usually followed by radiation therapy. Sometimes it's followed by both radiation therapy and chemotherapy. Just as frequently, the treatment is total mastectomy, which means removal of your entire breast. Sometimes that is followed by radiation therapy. Sometimes it's followed by both radiation therapy and chemotherapy. And it's also common for women to have bilateral mastectomies for CIS that is found in just one breast. Sometimes that is followed by radiation therapy, and sometimes it is followed by both radiation therapy and chemotherapy. Do you see how much difference there is in the management of carcinoma in situ of the breast compared to the analogous entity in the cervix? Why? Fear, my dears, fear. So here you have a situation in which abnormal cells are self-contained within a tiny lobule or duct. They are essentially trapped and have not invaded any borders at all. And yet they are treated as if they are full-blown cancers. And they aren't even treated as stage 1 cancer that is confined to the organ of origin. They are treated as metastatic cancers. Take another look at the treatment chart for cervical cancer, which is a much worse cancer than breast cancer. Focus on the orange color now. Notice that the treatments for actual cervical cancer stages 1 through 4 range from radical hysterectomy to radiation therapy and chemotherapy. But you have that same treatment range for just stage 0 CIS of the breast. Isn't that shocking? Even most true cancers that are benign are managed more conservatively. This bothers me because I have encountered countless women who have had lobular carcinoma in situ or ductal carcinoma in situ and thought they had full-blown invasive breast cancer. Nobody even told them that they didn't really have cancer. I think that's wrong. For heaven's sake, just tell them the truth. If a woman with cervical dysplasia wants a total hysterectomy instead of just cryotherapy, laser destruction, LEEP, or cervical conization, fine! That would be her prerogative. But she would choose that treatment knowing full well that she did not have cervical cancer. Such is not the case with these women who have had LCIS or DCIS. They think they had full-blown invasive breast cancer. And what's worse, as you'll learn in later videos, is the fact that everyone else treats them as if they had full-blown breast cancer too, for the rest of their lives. So treating lobular or ductal carcinoma in situ as if they are full-blown cancers is like treating a common mild autoimmune disease as if it's AIDS. I don't know about you, but I think the name for carcinoma in situ of the breast should be changed. I do not think it should include the word carcinoma. It should be pre-breast cancer, or breast dysplasia, or in situ dysplasia, or even neoplasia in situ. It just needs to reflect that, number one, it is not cancer. Second, it is localized to just a tiny lobule or duct in your breast. Third, It may or may not ever be anything worse than it already is. And fourth, it is not a cause for fear. Labels matter, and what's in a name can set the stage for everything that follows. So now you understand all the inconsistencies that have emanated from this one mislabeled entity. And as we progress through this unit, you will see more and more of this kind of distortion. There are many more inconsistencies in the world of breast cancer than just this one, and they seem to keep growing. I call breast cancer the chaotic cancer, not because it's odd as a cancer, but because people's response to it is. So the summary for today is as follows. The label Carcinoma In Situ of the breast is an oxymoron because it breaches the very definition of a cancer. It is actually a pre-cancer that may not ever behave like a cancer. CIS of the breast is stage 0 cancer, which means it is not a cancer. It is non-invasive, which means it is not a cancer. It is analogous to cervical intraepithelial neoplasia of the cervix, which is also not a cancer. But it is treated as a stage 4 cancer because of fear. And to sum this up even further, I created a chart of CIS inconsistencies. In the first column, you see the areas of inconsistency we discussed today. I've simply listed the 6 inconsistencies I presented. In the second column, you see the normal rule for other cancers that are not governed by a frenzy of fear that plagues breast cancer. In the third column, you see the distorted inconsistencies present in this world of breast cancer, which is governed by the frenzy of fear. And they are all the details of the 6 inconsistencies I presented for breast cancer today. As usual, you can find this chart in the description box via the link, or you can go to menopausetailor.me. This is only the beginning, believe me. Because as we progress through this unit, you'll see that there are a whole lot more inconsistencies than just the ones I've listed here today. There are so many that they will literally make your head spin. And your head is going to spin so much it might just twist itself off your neck. Just kidding. All right, ladies, did I make you mad? Sometimes the truth is really upsetting, especially if you've been a victim of the kinds of distortions and inconsistencies I discussed today. It is never my intention to upset you. My only goal is to give you the whole truth and the whole story. I want everything to make sense, and the truth makes sense. So give this some thought and come back next week when we'll be ready to begin discussing actual breast cancer. Up until now, we've been discussing normal breasts and benign breast diseases. If you'd like me to help you with anything at all or tailor this entire education specifically to you, please schedule a consultation with me at menopausetailor.me. And you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and Stories. You can also sign up for my newsletter and subscribe to this YouTube channel right here and now. I will see you next week. Bye!